Some stories begin in ordinary moments, but end up revealing the deepest parts of people. That's what happened on that afternoon in a bustling bank branch. The bank was crowded. Long lines and murmurs of complaints created a tense atmosphere. Employees rushed back and forth, trying to manage the chaos, while impatient customers alternated between glancing at their watches and quietly voicing their frustrations. Amidst it all, Mary Anderson, an elderly woman, waited nervously. She clutched an envelope, her fingers slightly trembling. Mary had come seeking answers. What seemed like a simple mistake in her account was, for her, a matter of survival. But Mary was about to face something far greater than just bureaucracy. Mary finally took a step forward, approaching one of the service counters. She adjusted her coat, trying to appear confident, but her expression betrayed a hint of unease. "I hope they can sort this out today," she murmured to herself, glancing at the envelope with worry. Meanwhile, one of the bank employees, Bob Simon, walked through the room. He cast quick glances at the customers and, without saying a word, seemed to prioritize only those who appeared to have greater financial means. For Bob Simon, some issues seemed more important than others. Mary, with her worn-out envelope, was far from his priority that day. Mary hesitated for a moment, looking around. She approached the counter and, before speaking, took a deep breath, as if she knew she needed strength to be heard. Mary didn't know it, but that afternoon would be unlike any other. Her attempt to be heard would lead to a moment of great humiliation, but the unexpected was on its way. Mary approached the service counter. The teller, Kate Campbell, a young woman with a tired and impatient expression, glanced up briefly before continuing to type on her computer. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" Kate asked, not taking her eyes off the screen. Mary adjusted the envelope in her hands and took a deep breath. "Good afternoon. I'm here because my account has some charges that I believe are incorrect. I brought everything I could to try to understand." Kate finally looked at Mary, but her gaze was indifferent. She took the envelope mechanically and began flipping through it with little effort. "Let's see. Here it is. These charges are standard, ma'am. They're all listed in your account agreement," Kate said, pushing the envelope back toward Mary. Visibly unsettled, Mary tried to explain, "But I can't afford these fees. This must be a mistake. I was never informed about these charges." Kate sighed and rolled her eyes, drawing the attention of a few people nearby. "Ma'am, maybe you don't understand how things work these days. Banks have policies, and these fees are automatic." "There's nothing I can do," Kate responded, her tone dripping with disdain. Mary felt belittled. That response not only dismissed her problem, but also made her feel incompetent. She tried to hold back the tears threatening to fall. Mary whispered, "I just want what's fair." Kate crossed her arms and smirked slightly, as if she were in control of the situation. "Fair? Ma'am, if you want to avoid fees, you need to keep more money in your account. That's how it works." The public humiliation had begun. Customers nearby whispered among themselves, and Mary could feel the weight of their stares. Still, she tried to maintain her composure. "It can't be like this. I just want to better understand what happened," Mary said, her voice trembling. Bob Simon was about to make things worse for Mary, but what he didn't know was that someone unexpected was already watching everything. Bob Simon, the manager, walked toward the counter with firm steps. His presence commanded attention, and Kate immediately straightened her posture, as if trying to appear more efficient. "Is there a problem here?" Bob asked, crossing his arms and casting a quick glance at Mary before focusing on Kate. Kate smiled nervously. "No, sir. Just a customer having trouble understanding the account policies." Mary, already visibly uncomfortable, tried to interject. "That's not it. I believe there's been a mistake with my account. I'm just trying to get it resolved." Bob raised his hand, cutting her off. "Ma'am, if you think there's been a mistake, you should have read the contract before opening your account. Everything is very clear for those who pay attention. Mary stood silent for a moment, surprised by Bob's harsh tone. She took a deep breath before responding. I've always kept my account in good standing. These charges appeared out of nowhere. All I'm asking is for someone to review them. Bob let out a brief, almost mocking laugh. Review? Ma'am, what's in the system is in the system. We don't review something that's automatic. Mary felt the weight of the humiliation deepen. It wasn't just the coldness of the words, but the way Bob spoke, as if she had no worth at all. She looked around, searching for a supportive glance among the customers, but she found only indifference. Some avoided her gaze, while others whispered among themselves. Bob leaned slightly over the counter, looking directly at Mary. If you can't afford the fees, maybe this bank isn't the right place for you. Mary opened her mouth to respond, but indignation and shame made it hard to find the words. She looked down at the envelope in her hands, feeling utterly defeated. Bob seemed to consider the discussion over. To him, Mary was nothing more than an inconvenient customer. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. From across the bank, a discreet figure dressed in a casual jacket and a baseball cap had been watching everything attentively. He began to approach slowly, not drawing attention immediately. When he heard Bob's words, he decided to step in. A calm and firm voice cut through the room. Why are you speaking to her like that? The entire bank fell silent. Every eye turned to the figure who had spoken. The man who had just intervened seemed ordinary at first glance, but within seconds, everyone realized he was anything but ordinary. Mary looked at the man, surprised by the intervention. Bob Simon turned slowly, clearly irritated by the interruption. And who are you to question what's happening here? Bob said, crossing his arms and furrowing his brow. The man took a few steps forward, slowly removing his cap. When his face was finally revealed, a murmur spread throughout the room. Dwayne Johnson, yes, him, the world-famous actor, was standing right there. And now everyone in the bank knew it. Dwayne maintained his calm demeanor, but his eyes were locked on Bob. It doesn't matter who I am, Dwayne said in a serious but controlled tone. What matters is why you're treating this lady like this. Mary was even more shocked. She looked at Dwayne, almost unable to believe that someone like him was standing there, defending her. Bob took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. Mr. Johnson, I had no idea you were here, but look, this is none of your business. We have policies at this bank, and this lady isn't meeting the requirements. Dwayne gave a faint, ironic smile. Policies, he asked, tilting his head slightly. Or an excuse to humiliate someone who's just trying to solve a problem. Dwayne's presence was magnetic. Even Kate, who had seemed confident earlier, now glanced nervously at Bob, waiting for him to say something to justify the situation. Dwayne turned to Mary, speaking in a softer tone. Ma'am, what exactly is the problem? Can you show me what's going on? Mary hesitated for a moment, glancing around at the now silent bank. Then, with a deep breath, she handed the envelope to Dwayne. He took it carefully and began examining the documents inside, flipping through the pages with a focused expression. After a few seconds, he looked up at Bob. This is a mistake, Dwayne stated firmly. These charges shouldn't be here. You're going to fix this right now. Bob opened his mouth to argue, but Dwayne raised a hand, cutting him off. If this is a mistake, you'll fix it, he continued, his voice unwavering. And if it's not, it's going to be much worse for you. The bank was in shock. No one had expected someone like Dwayne Johnson to step in so directly, but he wasn't finished yet. Dwayne placed the envelope on the counter, fixing Bob with a firm gaze. I want you to review this immediately, he said, and I'm not leaving until everything is resolved. Bob was speechless, visibly uncomfortable under Dwayne's intense scrutiny. He shifted nervously, glancing at Kate for support, but she looked just as lost as he did. Dwayne leaned slightly over the counter, his tone calm but firm. We're not just talking about a simple mistake here, are we? We're talking about how you're treating a customer who deserves respect. And from what I've seen, that's clearly lacking here. Kate cleared her throat and tried to break the silence, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Johnson, maybe you don't understand how the system works. We follow strict guidelines. Dwayne raised his hand again, politely but firmly cutting her off. Strict guidelines, he repeated. I understand enough to know these fees are completely arbitrary, and I also know you have the autonomy to correct them. Mary stood beside him, clasping her hands together, still in disbelief over what was unfolding. Dwayne looked at her, offering a reassuring smile. Don't worry, we're going to sort this out. The entire bank was watching the scene unfold, customers and staff alike frozen in anticipation. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Dwayne took the envelope back and showed the papers to Bob. These statements, he said, holding up the documents. The charges started 2 months ago, correct? Dwayne looked at Mary, who nodded. Yes, she replied softly. He turned back to Bob. And tell me, why did these maintenance fees triple? Because it doesn't look like there's any legitimate reason here. Bob swallowed hard. He started to speak, but Dwayne interrupted him again. You might want to think carefully about your answer, he warned, his voice dangerously calm. Because if this is something bigger than a mistake, you and everyone here are going to have a much bigger problem on your hands. The tension in the room was palpable. The employees, who had previously seemed indifferent, now looked visibly nervous. Bob knew he couldn't keep dodging the situation. I'll need to review this in the system, he stammered. Dwayne crossed his arms, staring firmly at Todd. Then start now. Mary watched, still astonished, as Bob rushed to the computer and began typing frantically. Kate tried to keep up, but she was clearly panicking. As Bob reviewed the account, Dwayne remained steadfast by Mary's side. What had initially seemed like a simple mistake was beginning to reveal something much deeper. Bob stood up from his chair, visibly sweating. Mr. Johnson, he said hesitantly, there's something wrong here. Dwayne leaned in slightly. Wrong how? Bob glanced at Mary, then back at Dwayne, before finally admitting. It looks like these charges were applied to multiple accounts, mostly belonging to elderly customers. The room grew even quieter. Dwayne slowly shook his head. That's not a mistake. That's a scheme. Mary's eyes widened in shock. So, I'm not the only one, she whispered. How many people have you cheated? It was clear to everyone in the bank that Bob didn't have a convincing explanation. Kate, standing beside him, looked even more nervous, as if she knew something bigger was about to come to light. Bob tried to respond, but his voice faltered. I'll investigate this. I need more time to figure it out. Dwayne stepped forward, placing his hands on the counter. You've had enough time, he said coldly. Now, you're going to tell the truth. Bob's face turned pale. He swallowed hard and glanced at Brittany, who quickly averted her eyes. I'm not sure, maybe hundreds. Bob's confession landed like a bombshell. It wasn't just Mary. There were countless other victims. Dwayne knew he had to take action. Without hesitation, Dwayne pulled out his phone and began recording a video. What you're hearing, he said, his voice steady, is a bank manager admitting that his bank has been charging elderly customers unjust fees to boost profits. He pointed the camera at Todd and Brittany. This is unacceptable, and we're going to make sure everyone knows what's happening here. Bob raised his hands, desperate. Wait, please, don't do that. We can fix this. I can fix it right now. Dwayne lowered the phone slightly, but his tone remained firm. Fix it? This isn't just about returning the money. This is about justice. Do you think an apology is enough? Bob looked at Dwayne, sweat dripping from his brow. What do you want from me? Dwayne leaned in slightly, locking eyes with Bob. I want you to make this right for every single person who was affected, and I want the authorities to know exactly what happened here. In that moment, Bob realized there was no way out. He nodded, resigned, as Dwayne stood firm, determined to ensure everyone received the respect and justice they deserved. Hours later, The bank released an official statement announcing radical changes. Bob and Kate were removed from their positions, and a full audit was initiated to identify all accounts affected by the unjust fees. Mary, standing beside Dwayne, received more than just an apology. She was reimbursed for all her lost money, along with additional compensation for the hardships she had faced. Mrs. Anderson, a visibly embarrassed bank representative, told her, "On behalf of the bank, we sincerely apologize for this terrible situation. We are committed to correcting this immediately." Mary looked at Dwayne, tears welling in her eyes. "I never could have done this alone. Thank you for believing in me." Dwayne offered a small smile. "You should never have gone through this. But now, it's not just about you. We're helping so many others who were wronged, too." As Mary left the bank, she seemed different, still humble, but with a renewed spark of hope in her eyes. Dwayne, standing beside her, glanced at the other customers, who remained in silence, clearly moved by what they had just witnessed. Dwayne turned to the crowd and spoke with clarity. "Never let anyone tell you that you're worth less. Whether you're elderly, young, wealthy, or struggling, everyone deserves respect. And most importantly, never be afraid to fight for what's right." His words echoed through the room, earning applause from customers who had initially seemed indifferent. He gave Mary a discreet wave goodbye and walked out of the bank, leaving behind a lesson no one would soon forget. A few days later, the video of Dwayne exposing the bank scheme went viral, garnering millions of views. Not only did the bank face a thorough investigation, but many victims began recovering their lost savings. Dwayne's story became more than just a call for justice. It became a symbol of hope for many. Respect and justice should be the only rules we follow. May this story inspire you to act with courage and empathy wherever you are. Did this story inspire you? Let's spread the message. Like this video if you believe respect and justice should be for everyone. Comment "respect is for everyone" to show your support for fairness and dignity. Share this story with friends and family, because standing up for what's right can change lives. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more powerful stories that inspire action. Let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.